So in this latest video looking at decimals, we'll be focusing on ordering a list of decimal numbers in either ascending or descending order. Now, ordering decimals are very popular exam questions. Now, before moving on to ordering decimals, it is important that we cover two important words. Now, just like ordering or ranking anything, you will always get asked how you want to rank or order the numbers or the data. So, for example, you could get asked to rank or order your least favourite to your favourite, your best to your worst, alphabetical order, highest to lowest, etc., and vice versa. Now in maths we tend to use two types of ordering, and the first one is ascending, which basically means smallest to biggest, and descending, which is largest to smallest. Now many of the errors that students make is getting these two words confused, so it's really important that you devise a method of recognizing what these two words mean and the difference between the two. Now how I personally choose to remember this, although it doesn't really make any sense, is A is like the first letter in the alphabet, so I always see that A is like the smallest letter. And then obviously D is going to be the opposite of that. Now, with regards to, sometimes you might remember it in terms of plane flying. So when you are ascending upwards, and when you're descending, you're coming down to land. And there's other things you can remember, like think about is the letters. So for example, A looks like is like an arrow going upwards. So it's going from the smallest to the largest. And descending is, well, D can seem down, in which you're going in that direction. So if you imagine the skies being the highest and the ground being the lowest, you can kind of get an idea of what it is. But I certainly would definitely make a note of what these two words mean and know the difference between the two, because like I said, examiners, although ascending seems to be very popular, they could easily stick in a curveball and stick in the word descending, which is the complete opposite. So let's have a look at ordering decimals. Now, when ordering a long list of numbers, it's useful to have a plan or a system to do this. Now, with small list of numbers, all with different digits, it may be both quick and easy to order them in your head and go straight for the final answer. So, for example, if we were asked to write the following numbers in ascending order, so we've got 73, 42, 58, 17, and 21, then it's pretty obvious that as we've only got 5 numbers, now I always start these questions is not like I'm playing hangman, but I'm going to start, I've got 5 numbers, so I'm going to do 5 dashes, and this way kind of avoids me missing any numbers out, and if I do, which is easily done, I can easily spot that I've done that. So from this I can see that my smallest number is 17, so that's going to go here, and my largest number is 73. And then looking at this, my next smallest is 21, and the next one is 42, and then I've got 58. So it's pretty obvious, and I could pretty much do that in my head without having to do any working out. However, for a longer list, as you can see from the list of yellow numbers you can see there, it's going to be very time consuming, and it's going to be very easy, particularly with the numbers very close together, for me to forget a number or ignore it and for it to get merged in with another number. So it may take longer, and it's easy for you to forget a number or make a mistake that you spot later, meaning that you might have to start again, you might have to squeeze numbers in. So for example, you might have to write, let's say 19 there, and it kind of messes up the order and it doesn't look very neat, particularly if you're going to use this as part of a future question. Now, in exam questions, often the digits and the numbers, as well as the numbers themselves, may look very similar. Now, this isn't necessarily for you to make a mistake, but really for you to test your understanding and method in ordering the numbers. So, for example, here, writing again, asked in ascending order, you can see a lot of 6, 3s and 0s all over the place. And again, if you look at it too closely, they can all seem like the same number. Now, the method you can see on the screen is not set in stone. This is not a method that everyone does. Ideally, with practice, you'll be able to see a question. You won't have that many numbers for you to order, and you might be able to get straight to the final answer without having to do these following 5 steps. But again, this is just here for those to have a bit of structure, to have some idea of what the process is to order these decimals. But like I said, you're not going to get any marks for showing any working out, particularly when it comes to ordering decimals. It's either right or it's wrong. If one number's out of place, you may lose 1 mark, but again, and you get full marks for if everything is correct. So again, it's trial and error, but with a bit of practice, you'll be able to do a lot of these steps in your head, or be able to skip some steps that you feel is unnecessary because you've improved in your skills. So in terms of the first step is to count the number of numbers in your list and draw underscores for each of the numbers. So previously to what I did in the last sort of example is pretend as if you're playing hangman, counting how many numbers you've got. So if I've got 5 numbers, I do 5 dashes for the 5 numbers in my final answer. And that way it just stops you from missing any numbers, but also to recognize when you have missed a number, because like I said, it doesn't matter how old you are, how good you are at maths, it's easily done when you are dealing with a big list of numbers. The next step is to write the numbers in a list going downwards. Sometimes students tend to find it easier to look at numbers going down rather than across, but again, it's all up to your own interpretation. But it's also making sure that the decimal point is in the same place. In a similar way to adding and subtracting decimals, is you want to make sure that the decimal place is in the same position for every single number in your list. It's easier for you to read them if that is the case. Third step is to find the number with the longest amount of numbers after the decimal point, and then to add zeros to all the other numbers so that each number all have the same number of numbers after the decimal point. Now that is a big mouthful of a sentence to read. It's probably not a well structured sentence, but again, it's easy for me to go through an example when I'm going through that step for it to make sense. The fourth step is to next ignore the decimal point and rewrite each of the numbers. Alternately, you can do this in your head, which is true. It's just a case of the decimal points not really important, but again, the fourth step is to help you decide which number is biggest. And again, I will go through these in when we go through some examples. And the final step is using the numbers in step 4 as a guide. Order the original numbers either in ascending or descending order requested in the question. So always make sure you want to read the question carefully, because again, if a question is asking you to write ascending and you've wrote descending, you're going to get 0 because all your numbers are going to be in the wrong position. So it's always worth taking extra care to make sure you've read the question before you then set out to do about 3 minutes worth of work. And the final thing is try and use the original decimal numbers rather than any altered numbers. So if you have added zeros to numbers, now no, technically there is no difference between 2.4 and 2.400 because they're both 2.4. But what you want to do is if the original number was 2.4, write 2.4 in your final answer. Try not to write the altered. You shouldn't really lose any marks for it, but again, it's worth just taking extra note. And if you can, brilliant. If not, there is a risk, but a very small chance you might lose a mark if so. So let's have a look, go straight into some examples of what we actually mean in terms of these steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to divide the page so I can do my working out. So in the first question, you can see I've got 5 numbers. So I'm just going to do 5 dashes that are going to represent my numbers. I probably need to do bigger lines, but we'll see where we go. So if I just write down the numbers in a list, so that was step 1. So we just write a little hashtag 1. And so hashtag 2 is to write the numbers in a list. So I've got 0.1, 0.09, I've got 0.99, 0.15 and 0.11. Now you can see here, now in terms of the third step, I've got them all in nice little columns. My decimal point, although it's going a bit diagonally, they're generally in the same place. Now you can see here that the longest number that I've got, number of numbers after the decimal point, is 2. So I need to make sure that every single one of those red numbers you can see on screen has got 2 digits after the decimal point. Now the one that's the odd one out is the first one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 0 so that they've now all got 2 numbers after the decimal point. Now in terms of the third step, what I'm now going to do is, or the fourth step I should say, is I'm going to ignore the decimal point and write those numbers as it is. So I've got 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 9, 0, 9, 9, 0, 1, 5, and 0, 1, 1. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just put a letter next to each of these numbers. And what I'm now going to do is use these yellow numbers to help me order the red numbers going from smallest to biggest. So looking at my set of numbers, I can see 009, which is basically 9, is the smallest out of the numbers. So here I'm going to write down, let's get a different color pen. So I'm going to write 0.09. And what I'm then going to do is I'm just going to put a line through that so it's not getting confused with any other number. And also it tells me I've already chosen that one. Now out of the remaining 4 numbers I've got 10, 99, 15 and 11. So the next smallest is the top one, which is 0.1. And again, I'm just going to rub that down. So out of the three numbers I've got left, I've got 99, 15 and 11. The next smallest is 0.11. And then between 15 and 19, well, the next smallest is 0.15 and the next is 0.99, and there is my final answer. For number 2, again, writing the numbers down, so I've got 2.01, 2.4, 2.14, 2.006 and 2.405. So again, you can see here that the most number of numbers I've got after the decimal point is 3. So I'm going to write down every single number so they've got 3 digits after the decimal point, and you can see I'm adding zeros to those numbers that haven't. So again, the next thing I'm going to do is ignore the decimal point and write the numbers out. So I've got 2010, 2400, 2140, 2006 and 2405. And again, just to make it easier for me to recall the letters, I'm just going to write A, B, C, D, E. Now again, you don't need to set your work out like I'm doing. I'm just finding a way to make it easier for me to explain this to you. But again, where the marks come from is you ordering these numbers in the correct order. So looking at these, I've got 2010, 2400, 2140, 2006 and 2405. So from this list, I can see that D is the smallest and the original number was 2.006. And again, I'm going to put a line through that. Let's go for yellow because I've chosen that number. Now, as the remaining numbers, I've got 2010, which is the next smallest, which is A. So I'm going to write 2.01. Let me just put that so it's also yellow. And again, I'm going to put a line through that. Out of the remaining numbers, I've got 2400, 2140 and 2405. So again, the next smallest is C, which the original number was 2.14. And put a line through that. And then out of the remaining two, there's not much difference between the two, but the next smallest is 2.4. And then the final number is 2.405. And there is my final answer. And then for question 3, and again, I'm just going to quickly rub this all out. Not very neatly. There we go. And so for question 3, again, I'm going to write the numbers out. Lots of 5s in this particular question, so I'm going to have to be careful. I've got 5.0555. Now, the biggest misconception with these questions is thinking that the longer the number, the bigger it is. And that's where a lot of students tend to go wrong when they're taking this particular topic for granted. And it's not the longest number, it's not the biggest number that's after the decimal point, because again, that's a very easy misconception that a lot of people do make, and which is why this topic isn't that easy at face value. So again, I've just written the numbers in the list, and you can see the longest number of numbers I've got after the decimal point is 4 digits. So I'm going to make sure that every single number has got 4 digits after the decimal point. Now with these numbers, I'm just going to write 55,500. I've got 50,555. I've got 55,000. I've got 55,150 and 55,001. So looking at these particular set of numbers, I can see that this number here is my smallest. So I'm going to write, let's get those dashes on the way. 2, 3, 4, 5. So looking at this, my smallest is 5.0555. And again, I'm going to put a line through that so I'm not getting confused. So out of the remaining numbers, the next smallest is 55,000, so it's 5.5. The next smallest is 55,001, so that's 5.5001. And then out of the two remaining numbers, it's going to be 5.515. And then the biggest number, which is 5.55. and there is my final answer. And looking at number 4, so again, going to go through this. Now again, it's entirely up to you. As I said, you don't have to do that method. If you can do it in your head, brilliant. So I can see this number as, so if imagine one technique you might want to do is make sure that all the numbers have got 3 digits after the decimal point. So this is 788, this is 870, that's 780, that's 880, and that's 770. Oh, not 777. Bit excited there with the sevens. And there we go. So from this list, I can see that in terms of the smallest, that 770 is my smallest. I've got 0.77. And again, I can cross that off. And then I've got 780. So 0.78. Cross that off. For the next smallest, it's going to be 0.788. And again, notice how I'm crossing the sort of pretend numbers or the imitation numbers, modified numbers I've got, because again, it might be a question where I might need to use these numbers or read these numbers again. If I've completely obliterated them by scribbling them all out, it's going to be very difficult for me to reread, particularly questions involving the median, where you've got to order the numbers in smallest for biggest, or you've got to work out the mode or the mean after. But again, that's another topic. So out of the two numbers remaining, it's going to be 0.87 and 0.88, and there is my final answer. Now in this particular question, question 5, the first word I know difference is descending. So what we need to do here is that it's wanting from big to small. So again, I'm going to set up my 5 numbers because I've got 5 numbers there. And again, how I want to see this is I've got the longest number of, or the biggest amount of numbers I've got after the decimal point is 3. So again, I'm going to add a 0 to make sure that every single number has got 3 digits after the decimal point. So this one is 1222, this is 2010, this is 1212, 1112, and 1200. So again, I'm going for the biggest number this time. So the biggest number is 2011, so it's 2.11. Cross that number off. The next smallest, or next biggest I should say, is 1022, so that's 1.222. Cross that off. Out of the next biggest is 1.212, and then the next smallest is 1.2, and then the smallest is 1.112, and there is my final answer in descending order. The next question, or I think this is the last one, the question is asking, this is a multiple choice question, and the question says circle the 4th largest number in the list. So again, I kind of need to order them first. So here I've got 80.988, 80.09, 80.99, 80.8, and 80.909. So again, the longest number of numbers I've got after the decimal point is 3. So I'm going to rewrite every single number so they've all got 3 digits after the decimal point. And then it's just a case of ordering these. I'm ignoring it. I've got 80.988, 80.090, 80.990, 80.800, and 80.909. So from this, I can see that this is my smallest. So that's number 1. And I can cross that off. The next smallest is 900 or 80,800. So that's the second smallest. As the remaining numbers, the next smallest is this one here. That's my 4th, and that's my 5th. So from these numbers, I can see that the first one is actually the 4th largest number, so that will be the one that I order. So you can see how a variation of different questions but doing the same thing. So it definitely does take a bit of practice, which is a nice segue for me to tell you that there is a practice worksheet in the description below for you to download. There's also a set of answers for you to check your work, for you to practice everything that you've learnt in this video.